Lisanne Fear on this panel. She rode her Mustangs, 4 of them, and a Mustang all the way across the United States from Delaware to Sacramento, and beyond, all the way into the ocean. And that documentary will be coming out soon, so keep watching for it. We're running the trailer all weekend, and then we have Miss Ann. And Miss Ann, who started Forever Branded, so we love her for that. And a big surprise to me is Matt Zimmerman, because I hadn't met you before. We've been Facebook followers and friends, but another Mustang advocate. So we're going to have everybody have a microphone, and you guys can have some fun.
Thank you. I'll let you kick it off.
Okay, welcome everybody. I know that all of you that are here are truly forever branded, and that's what's the most important thing. And to have a videographer that is forever branded inside, woo! That means we're all going to be really photographed great. So we're honored here today to have Lisanne and Matt, both of them that have Mustangs. And the wonderful thing about Forever Branded, all of us that are part of Forever Branded actually do have Mustangs and Burros. And so that's a great part. So Matt, I'm going to let you say a few words. I know you and Stacy have a few Mustangs at home, have experienced a few things, and Mustangs kind of helped brought you together a little bit too, huh?
Sure, yeah. So my name is Matt Zimmerman, and I'm from Central Nevada is where I'm from. And so from an early age, when we were out gathering cattle, we'd always encounter wild Mustangs, and I've always had kind of a love for them. So it wasn't until 2007, 2008 when I did my first Mustang competition, and since then it's been just a whirlwind. And so I ended up meeting my wife Stacy because I trained a Mustang, and somebody decided that I needed to train this buckskin quarter horse and show it based on as well as my Mustang was. So I went into the show world, and that's when I happened to run into my beautiful wife, and we've been together ever since. So, but Stacy and I have been training together since 2012. So, and we've ran several different tip challenges across Idaho. This is our 7th, 8th year, and we're kind of responsible for finding homes for above 1,000 animals. So it's kind of neat to see where they go, and it's kind of neat to see the ones that we trained and competed on, and then they're auctioned off. And so our goal has always been to kind of find Mustangs homes and to get Mustangs trained really well, and then put them into good families and homes. And they're scattered out all over the country. We have one in Florida, one in South Carolina. I know we have Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming, all the western states, and one of ours has ended up in France. So our event that we do, the tip challenge, that is just growing. Last year we had 170 animals involved in that competition, and it's really neat to see everybody come back and the excitement that we get from them. So, but anyway, that's just us in a nutshell. And so I guess I'll turn it over to Lisanne, and Lisanne can do some talking and introduce herself, and we can just go from there.
Hi guys, I'm Lisanne Fear. I'm from Pineville, Wyoming, 6th generation to Wyoming. I grew up on a 55,000 acre cattle ranch. Sadly, my family lost the ranch, and I missed being on my horse every day. And so then I got the crazy ass idea to ride my Mustangs across the entire country from Delaware to California, and rode my Mustangs 5,000 miles to inspire and educate the adoption of 5,000 Mustangs. One of the coolest things about riding across the country was I got to meet so many great people. But even prior to that, my very first Mustang competition ever, that I ever had a wild horse, and he's actually here at this competition, he's here competing tonight, being rode by another friend. But it's so cool, the Mustang family that's built in, because I went to that competition, which is where I first met Matt and Stacy there, and Matt passed on a little piece of tidbit that in the last 10 years I have never forgotten it. But I remember, like, he won that year, grand champion, and I was like, I met him in the stalls, and I was like, how did you do that? And he was like, if you just give 1% every day, that's how you're going to be at your competition. If you give 1% every single day, you're at 100%. If you only give it half the time, you're only at 50%. And that's something that just really resonated with me, because, I'm such a procrastinator in so many ways. And with horses, you can't just push them through to the next. Like, it's little increments by little increments when it comes to training, and that's how you're successful. You can't just jump 10% ahead with horses. So I really, really appreciate that tidbit. And then I'm so happy to be sitting here next to Ann Souders. I'd heard of her for quite a while, being in the Mustang family, but it was so cool to meet you very first in person, going out with Pat Doak and photographing wild Mustangs. So that was a really cool thing to actually like go out and experience. And I grew up just 100 miles away from where we first met, and I had never gone out on the range and seen the wild horses there. And it's so cool that that same band of wild horses we saw that day, I actually have a curly Mustang mare here at the Expo from that day, from that herd that we saw. So
We're related now.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
We're related.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things about the Mustang community. And coming out of the quarter horse world, I don't want to speak ill of the quarter horses because I owned a few in my day, but there's so much more familial bond between the Mustang people, because I think a lot of us are a little bit more gritty and united on that front when we take on a completely wild animal versus something that was born around humans from day one. So yeah, it's just a super unique experience in the Mustang world, and I'm just so grateful to be a part of the Forever Branded family.
Well, Forever Branded is from the inside out. That's what we love the most about it. And if you go to the Forever Branded Facebook page, our mission is creating and fostering community, one wild horse and burro at a time. And there's 3 of us up here, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that can tell you that is exactly what it is. Creating and fostering community, one wild horse and burro at a time. Now, when I first met Lisanne in person out on that range at Salt Wells, she got to see a horse that is near and dear to my heart that I love so much. I just do. And he is our backdrop for Forever Branded. His name is Rocket. And I followed him for years. He's how I met Pat Doak, because she first was the photographer that took his picture. And now Lisanne and I are related because she has his daughter. And so she's actually in the round pen over there, and if we can sneak him in front of that backdrop soon and not tell anybody here, we're going to try to get a picture of him together. So that is really special. I mean, talk about creating and fostering a community. Yeah. One wild horse at a burro at a time. That's what did it. And I think the most amazing thing about being Forever Branded is it doesn't matter who you are or where you live. It doesn't really matter if you have a wild horse or you have a horse or you live in town or what your age is or your address or what you do for a living, what war you were in, how many times you showed in the show pen. You can still be Forever Branded and be a part of what we do. That's what fostering and creating the community is all about. Educating everybody about these amazing horses that are on almost 27,000 acres, or 27 million acres in the wild, and we have 82,000 out there that we're needing to place into homes. And so we're doing our part, I think. So doing a good job, and you did your part all across America.
Still trying to work on it, yep.
Yep. So that's why we're all here today. And so the good part about all this is that we can all come together, all these groups come together, work, and hopefully many of the groups that are here and throughout America, we can all learn to agree to disagree to help these amazing horses. That's what it's all about. So, do we always want them wild? Oh, absolutely. I always want to be able to go out and see them wild. Do I want them healthy and taken care of? More than anything. That's the number one thing. So, Matt, I'm going to give this back to you, and I'd like you to tell us a little bit what learning about the wild horses and the plight of the wild horses, what it's done in you and Stacy's life, all the way around from where you live to your kids, to what you've done for others, and they have done a lot for others. That's going right back to that creating and fostering a community. So, Matt?
Well, I think part of it goes to education. I know recently we had 90-some animals picked up. And so when I did my first Mustang, nobody helped me. Nobody gave me any pointers. It was just the blind leading the blind. And so as time's gone on, I don't know how many that I've trained, quite a few, but I've gotten a little more proficient and efficient at it. And so if I can pass that knowledge along and share that knowledge, this last weekend we did what I call a jump start clinic, which is essentially trying to help people get their hands on their Mustangs quicker so that they can get to the good stuff. Because Mustangs are really good about playing cat and mouse and not wanting to be touched or caught. So that's part of the thing that if we can educate and create some scenarios where other people can get in there, and instead of me doing the work, I can just kind of pass along the knowledge on what are the next steps to do so that they could take that home. And so throughout the knowledge and education piece of the puzzle, if we can get people that are in the Mustang world that have had success, if they can help teach people that are new to the Mustang world, that's essentially what we're after, to make the Mustang adoptions that much more successful. So when I sit and think of all the Mustangs that we've trained and created along the way, I have so many stories I could bore you guys to death, but one of my Mustangs, I just happened to name him Iceman. And so I got a message on Facebook and asked if Iceman was after the movie Top Gun. And I said, well, of course it is. If I make it to the finals, there's going to be nothing but afterburners in speed. And so she said that's funny that you actually mentioned that. She goes, I actually work at the Fallon Naval Air Base. That is where the Top Gun fighter pilots are stationed. So she says, would it be possible for you to come down a day or two early and we can get you access into the Top Gun flight tower, the Top Gun gift store? We have stables at the base. We can leave your horses there for a few days. So we ended up going down there, and it was just the perfect timing. Stacy and I met some commander, and we went up into the Top Gun flight tower, and we were in the Top Gun flight tower for probably at least an hour and a half. And he explained the way it all worked. There was a surveillance plane above the Sierra Nevadas, California-Nevada border. And then he says, then there's another surveillance plane middle of Nevada. And then you have about 50 fighter pilots up in the air, and it's like, okay, Bill and Tom, you guys shoot Jack and Fred, and it's just war games in the air. But at the end of the day, everybody came in twos and threes, and so they would come by the flight tower, and then they would come around and then land and then taxi and then basically park right below us. And so it was just an interesting opportunity, and it happened just because of a Mustang, essentially. And that day, they took us into the Top Gun flight tower, and they said nobody's allowed really to shop here except for pilots. So they let us buy some sweatshirts and stuff like that. And then that day also, there just so happened to be a beach volleyball tournament on base. So here I was playing beach volleyball with a bunch of medics and Top Gun fighter pilots. And so I said, what would be really cool is if I could get a official Top Gun flight suit to use if I make it to the finals. So one of the pilots said, well, we can't do that because they issue them to us. So anyway, as time went on, we played volleyball, and then next thing you know, one of them comes up to me and says, hey, Matt, how tall are you? And I said, I'm about 5'7". Why is that? He says, I'll tell you what, I can't let you have it, but I could loan you a flight suit for the weekend, and after the weekend, you have to give it back. So make a long story short, I went to Reno, ended up making the finals, and then I did the top 10 wearing an official Top Gun flight suit. Ended up winning Reno, got first place at Reno on Father's Day weekend with my dad in the stands. So I think of all of these stories that go along, and it's just because we took an opportunity to find a Mustang a home, get it trained, and that Mustang found a great home. The people that have that Mustang, they love him. They've used him, I don't know how many trail rides and different things, and it's just kind of a blessing to see. Because from a horse trainer standpoint, if you can train a horse that somebody else can ride, that's what it's all about. And if you train a horse and you're the only one that can ride it, then maybe you ought to go find a job in town. I mean, that's just, but the Mustang that I was riding when I met Lisanne, I named him Inmate Dan because they informed me that he was born in the facility. So I said he's always been incarcerated. He does not know the wild. So, and the Dan part came in because my cousin was married to a gentleman named Dan, and he had so many DUIs that he would have to go into jail on the weekends. So I was at the vet clinic one day, and my cousin, my uncle was sitting there, and Dan walked in, and so my uncle referred to him, says, "So inmate Dan, what's your plans for the weekend?" And so I'm like, that just has a ring to it. So then I named him Inmate Dan, and we trained him and got him going. And when I made the finals, I used the song Bad Boys, What You Gonna Do? And then it changed to Jailhouse Rock with Elvis Presley. And so I was wearing a black and white prison suit, and Inmate Dan was wearing a black and white prison suit. So when we started the freestyle competition, it had the siren like an inmate has escaped. It goes, woo, and then it says, Inmate Dan has escaped. Inmate Dan has escaped. And then so we ride through a bunch of bars that were hanging down like we had a jailbreak. So all of these competitions, I just think you have to get them good and trained, and then be creative, and then try to make it memorable. So that years later I can think back, and I've had several people come up to me and talk about the freestyles that I've actually showcased and done well with over the years. And so then, me and Stacy, one year we went crazy. We did 6 extreme Mustang makeovers. So the first one was in Queen Creek, Arizona, Loveland, Colorado. Then we went to Reno, Nevada, and then we went to Nampa, Idaho, and then I think Texas, and there was one more. But so we drove all over the country, and so it was fun showcasing that, and we get to meet so many different people. And there's a network of Mustang people in this world, I think, now at this point, because overseas it's getting crazy too. But I told Stacy, I go, we could probably drive across the country and say, we're here, we need a place to stay, and we could probably stay for free going across the country, because we broke down in Logan, Utah, and our driveline fell out, so we were stuck. And I said, does anybody from Logan, Utah or surrounding areas have any place to stay? And within like a half an hour we had 20 places to stay. And I said to my wife, I'm like, this is crazy, all because of Mustangs. And so, but I just explained to you 2 of my Extreme Mustang makeover horses. I got like 20 plus. So I literally could go on all day. But the whole point of Stacy and I training the Mustangs, and then we've also got involved in putting on an event that's been very successful. My wife, she's great at number one, putting the event on, organizing it, and then finding the awards to make it look like, and actually make it a very successful event. A lot of people go home with prizes and cash and awards, and it's just awesome to see how fluid it runs. She takes care of all that side, and then I take care of all the horse side, stalls, this, that. So we have different parts of what we're actually good at. And so our event that we've done it for 8 years. It went from 38 animals the first year to 44 to 65 to 95 to 117 to 125. Last year was 170. So it's just increasing. And so if we could make a dent in doing it that way, I think we're definitely doing our part. And so it's just fun to do and fun to see. And I love watching the people with the burros too. Matt Zimmerman burros are like oil and water, but some people that have burros love them. And so you just got to have a pile of patience. And so, but anyway, that in a nutshell, is how Stacy and I kind of got into it and what we do, and we're doing our part. And we also, people that have came and visited from, say, Missouri. There's a lady came from Missouri, and some of our friends that have never seen Mustangs in the wild. It's just kind of neat to see if you've never seen them actually in their environment, in their element. And like Stacy said to me, she's like, how do you know where they're at? I'm like, I don't know. I just think like a Mustang. If it's windy, I want to go down there. If it's sunny, I'm going to go under the trees. And so we've always had a knack. I was driving back from my parents' place in Central Nevada, in the middle of nowhere, and I told Stacy, I go, turn right here, turn right. She goes, what? I go, yeah, just turn right. I go, I think there's Mustangs over here. So you couldn't see anything. There was just brush and everything. So we turn, we go like 3-4 miles off the main road, and we come over this hill, and there's like 250 Mustangs just scattered out everywhere grazing. And Stacy goes, how'd you know that? I'm like, I don't know. I just had a guess, And so we sat there and kind of walked around the desert, and we got to, get fairly close and see them in their element. And so I've had so many memories of Mustangs, and I've had so many different different pieces of the puzzle, whether it's training Mustangs, whether it's training people, whether it's competing. Like I have a Mustang over the weekend here that I'm competing on in a trail challenge. And so, I mean, if you have time to come watch me and my craziness, feel free. Come down there, I think at 6 o'clock tonight. And but the other cool part about it is I'm competitive, but there's something to be said if you can actually mentor and help people to the point where they actually are successful. And my wife and I, we were talking about it one day, and there's at least 7 or 8 individuals that have came to us to learn about Mustangs and want to be involved in the competition. And at the end of the competition, they're sitting up there with the buckle and the blue ribbon. And so they did the work. We just gave them the exercises. And so it's all about the educational piece. And for me, when I went out and I sought some advice and sought some education, I wanted to find an individual that possesses 2 characteristics. Number 1, this person has to be able to explain in simple terms so that I could understand it. And then in that same person, I want them to be able to grab my reins and show me with this horse. And normally you got one, not the other. So somebody can explain it really well, but when it comes to getting on the horse and showing me, they back up like a good calf horse and do a rollback like a reiner and run off like a thoroughbred. So, or it's vice versa. The person's a really good rider, can outride me any day of the week, but he can't explain himself out of a wet paper sack. So he would rather say, just give me the horse and I'll just fix it and do it, instead of teaching me the steps to be successful. So, you know, I've just kind of tried to pride myself in taking and getting both of those characteristics and kind of having them be a part of who I am. So by being married to my wife, she always keeps me in check and humbles me, and which is good. And then she's taught me how to be well organized, and then between the 2 of us, it really works great. And I've always said, to be successful, you really have to have a good woman behind you or at your side. And Stacy's always been there for me, and that's the reason I think that we've had the success that we have with our event and throughout the competitions and every facet of Mustangs. So, in a nutshell, I think that explained a bit. I'll give it back to Ann if she wants to add a little bit more. Feel free. There we go.
Well, and what Matt didn't tell you is this year they're establishing a new event off of their old event called Branded Bonanza. It's June 27th through the 29th in Napa, Idaho. And you can go to the Facebook page, Branded Bonanza, or Forever Branded will also have that on there and tell about it. And it has been remarkable watching all the individuals who picked up last weekend, seeing their faces, watching first touches. You get to be a part of every bit of that through the Facebook page, and that's really great. And Matt has a great knack for naming his horses, and I'm just going to give you a little hint. The horse he's competing on tonight, this is 2024, his name is Trump. I just had to add that to you. So anyway, now I'm going to give it to Lisanne. I want her to tell you a little bit about her adventure she had and a couple memories that she has from that stood out because of Mustangs and the Mustang community. I know what Matt told you about finding a place to stay with people in the community. She can talk to you about that all day long, because I will tell you, Mustang people put church people to shame, and I know that firsthand. So, Lisanne?
Yeah, so for those of you that are kind of new or just popped in, I rode my Mustangs 5,000 miles across the country to inspire and educate the adoption of 5,000 Mustangs from holding. And so with that, like everyone, I get asked a lot, like, oh, how did you plan where you were going? And I was like, well, I just woke up and I just headed a little farther west that day, and wherever it was good to stop, I just door knocked. So 95% of the time I was just door knocking from Delaware to California for places to stay. And I've got to say, on the East Coast, coming from Wyoming, let me back up real quick. This is a fun little tidbit. Before I ever even went on this journey, my family did not want me to do this. And they were taking me out to lunch to convince me not to be crazy and go ride across the country. And so my dad takes me to lunch, and I can tell we're just beating around the bush with small talk. And finally, he just cuts the chase, and he's like, Lisanne, I trust you up there in the mountains with those bears, mountain lions, whatever. But those East Coasters, they just aren't like us Wyoming folk. So that was his big deal. That was his thing is that they just could not be trusted. And I have to say, one of my favorite parts about riding Mustangs across the country is there's so many people out there in the world that their tax dollars are paying to go to the care of these horses that are in holding pens across America, but they have no idea. And when I show up on their doorstep leading 3 horses and a Mustang, it creates a lot of interesting conversations, but I feel like my horses gave access to a lot of Americans because everyone is an American that's a tax-paying American. You own these horses. These are your horses. And it was so cool to be able to ride through some of the big major cities. That had to be one of my favorite memories. Maybe those days were a little stressful. But yeah, like one prime example I want to say about, I think I was trying to touch on it here a little bit earlier, talking to some people around that we're all kind of connected with horses, but in a way, I feel like horses ground us. I think we haven't really adapted as fast as we've adapted our technology and different things, but horses kind of bring us back to nature and ground us in a way that no other animal really does. And the prime example I have of that is I was hell-bent on riding my Mustangs across the Mississippi. And in order to do that, there was only one bridge where I was legal to actually take my horses across the Mississippi. And as I'm telling people my route, everyone who's a local there in Missouri outside of St. Louis, I tell them what bridge I'm going on, and they're like, you should not go there. It is a very sketchy neighborhood to go through to get to that bridge. And I was like, well, it's the only bridge I won't get kicked off of, and I've got to cross the Mississippi. I was so excited to finally be in the West, essentially, and out of the East. Nothing against the East Coasters. I just wanted to be closer to my mountains. But I end up going in, and again, coming from Wyoming, I'm very naive about a lot of things, and I end up going through this neighborhood, and I'm riding one horse, leading my mule. A friend of mine from back home, she had flown in across the Mississippi with me, and another guy who also trains Mustangs, Garrett, he has Garrett's Path, if you guys would like to follow him and what he does with Mustangs. They were all with me riding that day. We had a film crew. My producer's sitting over here, Julianne. We had a film crew that day doing all the things. So we're riding through this super sketchy thing. And again, coming from Wyoming, I'm a little naive about life in the world in a lot of ways. And it is like something straight out of a movie. It is like these super rundown complexes. There are heroin needles around the drains on the street. You can see people doing drugs in the back alley. You can see the hookers on the corner. You can see the pimps sitting back in the car. This was just something that was straight up out of a movie, and I was like, I can see why people maybe told me not to go here. But at the same time, all of these people, and kids especially, started coming out of these just crappy whole houses, and they all had smiles on their face, and they were all so delighted to see the horses, and that was one of the coolest things. And then coming down the street is this guy, literally in one of those bouncing cars with the hydraulics. And my horses, granted, I had already rode them through Cincinnati, Washington, D.C., the East Coast, and they have seen some things in their day up to this point, okay? But they had never seen a bouncing car before. And all of my horses' heads just start to raise up in anticipation of what is this? And the guy sees us and he stops his car and he just slow rides it by us. And I cannot make this up, but he had the gold teeth even, okay? And he's like, aw, they riding horses in the hood. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then he gets a little closer and he's like, oh, y'all are girls. And he just could not believe. And that was a way that the horses brought everyone together, united humanity. Had the three of us just been walking on our own without our horses, I think it would have been a whole different experience going through that neighborhood. But because we went through the neighborhood with those horses, particularly the Mustangs, so I gotta say, you own a part of these horses. You help take care of these horses. These are your horses. I'm just bringing them directly to you and sometimes to your backyard. And so that was a really, really cool experience for me, how it united humanity. But it also reinforced when someone tells you not to do something, go do it anyways, and you will be amazed. So yeah, my Mustangs, they have just shown me so much light, so much way in the world, and this year marks my 10-year anniversary in Mustangs. And with that, I appreciated what Matt had to say. If you're gonna be a horse trainer, you ride. And I'm currently doing a social media campaign of 100 riders on my horse Finn. In the last 10 years, he's had over 100 people ride him. Not really ever in an arena. I do a lot of like backcountry stuff and things, and he's even had people with cerebral palsy on him and different things, and he's worked as a therapy horse a little bit. He's here at the Expo. He's competing tonight. I don't know how well he's going to do in an arena trail challenge, but if you took him in the mountains, I guarantee you that horse would definitely do great. I don't know about all the man-made trails, so I'm curious to see how he does, but that horse revolutionized my life. Before I ever even went on my trip across country, I was suicidal at one point, and the first time I went up in the mountains, it was in the winter time. I skied about 9 miles deep in the mountains, and I planned to take care of things up there, but I had skied in with my dogs, and because of that, I was like, well, if I do this, my dogs can't get home, and that's not fair to them. So I came back down, and I was like, I'll make a better plan. So this time, I'm like riding out a note, and I get through my quarter horses. Again, I don't have anything against quarter horses. I owned some at the time. Now I'm a purist, a branded purist at the moment. Everything I own,
Forever branded.
yeah, all 10 of my animals have a BLM brand on them. But I get my note, I get my quarter horses where I want them to go, I get where my dogs I want them to go, and I get to my Mustang Finn, and I just couldn't go any further. There's something special about a Mustang and taming and training them, and I really admire what Matt and Stacy do, where you guys can keep taming and training. But that was also part of why I went on the ride, is I found out I made a piss poor horse trainer because I couldn't sell my horses to get new ones and to keep that cycle going. And I wanted to help all 50,000 horses at that time standing and holding corrals, but I personally, and my little heart, could not take building the bond with 50,000 horses and seeing them all go on. But that's what I want. So I figured maybe I can inspire 50,000 people to adopt 50,000 horses, and we can get these horses out of holding corrals. The Mustang in general is a huge puzzle. There's so many different pieces, there's so many different parts to the complexity of like management and who are the horses, what are the horses. And everyone that is involved with Mustangs, you kind of have to find your piece and like solidify your piece and how it fits in the puzzle. And you hope that with your piece, once you've established it, that other people can connect to you and build off of that to help us create this betterment for our Mustangs across the country. So my focus was definitely on getting Mustangs adopted. And yeah, I think we inspired a few adoptions across the country when people saw us riding and pulling up to stoplights, and they were like, saw the brand, and they're like, what kind of horse is that? And I was like, this is your horse. It was a previously wild Mustang. And so I just want to say, like, I admire my horses so much. I wouldn't be here without my Mustangs. And it's a completely different bond that I have with my Mustangs than I ever have any domestic horse. So yeah, I actually am forever branded. I have a boot on right now, but I have my horse Phineas, who is now 10 years together. His brand is tattooed on my foot, so every step I take with him, because that's why I'm here, is because of him. So yeah, thanks to the Forever Branded family. I'm really excited about what you guys are doing and putting together, because it's just helping more and more Mustangs find homes.
And we're excited about you, because everybody can be a part of this. If you love horses, if you love Americans, you love our history and what we're about, that's what the American Mustang is about. And I want to tell you, and these people know, that first touch is pretty awesome. To think that that wild horse, you have earned its trust enough to let you touch it the first time. I'm telling you, that is an extreme emotion.
That's why I can't sell them after I've touched them.
I know. And to think that these people up here with me, these amazing trainers, riders, forever branded people, help all of you get that. It just doesn't get better than that. So that's what we're about, fostering, creating a community and family, one wild horse and burro at a time. And we want to help you. We want you to be part of this, because y'all own these horses. They're part of you. And they're part of our heritage. So as we wrap up some of this, does anybody have any questions for this crybaby or these two on both sides of me?
I cried a lot going across the country, questioned my life choices quite a bit. But what kept me going was definitely for the horses. If it was for me, I probably would have quit before I ever even crossed the Mississippi.
Well, we're extremely proud of you and
Well,
what
thank
you
you.
did. Extremely proud of you. And you and Stacy, too.
Yeah.
So, anybody have any questions? Well, I'm going to leave you with this. As we go on in this world we live in that is pretty tough right now, I can't think of anything better than to be forever branded in a Mustang community. Be there for each other. Learn everything you can. Be part of each group. Get out there and do your best to learn and to help other people and to be educated about these wonderful, amazing horses, because what they do for us is priceless. From Finian to Rosie to Rocket to my Shakoba to Trump, Iceman, Bubbles. Doesn't matter their name. They're changing all of us, one wild horse and burro at a time.